So yeah, I just finished watching this movie again, and I feel like an idiot. Because I realized something. Something I did not mention back then. This movie had more things wrong with it than previous Power Ranger movies did. And I'm going to explain exactly what they are from start to finish. Unlike the last review I did of this movie, I'm not holding anything back this time around. It starts off with the narrator talking about how robots are threatening humanity, and goes to say that the RPM Rangers are the last hope. He didn't say one RPM Ranger, he said the RPM Rangers, which right away gives us the impression that we're going to see Scott's whole team in the movie, which of course we don't, so that's mistake number one. The writers are definitely off to a bad start. So the duel begins between Scott, the red RPM Ranger, and Professor Cog, the giant toolbox monster, and of course Scott loses. But while this is going on, you would think we would see him in the Zord at least, right? Wrong. We see him elsewhere. I know it's supposed to look like he's inside the Zord, but come on, what do you call this? You can't even tell what's in the damn background. I don't know what kind of effect is used here, but long story short, it did not work. Mistake number two. So Professor Cog goes to the Samurai Rangers dimension. We see the opening minus Antonio. How can you forget to put one of the main characters in the opening? Jeez. We then cut to the train station, where we see Grinders and of course Professor Cog leading the way. And outside, the Rangers are fighting a Nightlock called Sharkjaw. And let me tell you, the Rangers were getting beat something serious. Even their weapons didn't do any good. But luckily for them, the Nightlock had to retreat due to drying out from using so much energy. And we see that same Nightlock in the Netherworld talking with Master Xandred. And he talks about his great Muger army that's all set to bring down the city, alongside General Gut. What a creative name, huh? General Gut? Seriously? Anyway, Professor Cog finds location to Master Xandred's Netherworld, goes in, and wants to have some Sanju water for himself, so he can contaminate the RPM Rangers in their dimension. That is, of course, if he could take down the Samurai Rangers first. We then cut back to the train station, and we see Ranger Red, but has he demorphed yet? No, he hasn't. And after that, we see the Rangers going for a walk, talking about how they beat the Nightlock and that they're celebrating. Wait a minute, a few scenes back, the Rangers got their asses kicked by that same Nightlock, and they even lost some of their main weapons. How could they celebrate after that? Shouldn't they be talking with Mentor G about fixing their weapons, or possibly, I don't know, training? Less than 10 minutes into this movie, and I'm thinking the first two Power Ranger movies made more sense than this. Anyway, the Rangers are celebrating their sorry excuse for a victory, then from out of nowhere, a random car nearly smashes them. What was the point of this? Couldn't they have did something else instead of wasting money on destroying the car? I mean, come on. So they head to where the car was dropped and they come in contact with Grinders, attempt to fight them off, and the Rangers are having a hard time yet again. Then from out of nowhere, Scott shows up and says that their swords won't work against the metal armor of the Grinders. And Scott pretty much does all the work. Now, let me repeat that. Scott said that the Samurai Rangers' weapons are no match for the Grinders, and that they need to update their weapons, trying to imply that they need weapons to beat them. Remember during the RPM season, when the Rangers would fight off the Grinders unmorphed from time to time? If I recall right, I remember seeing them fighting off the Grinders wearing regular clothes, tuxedos, and who could forget that fight that Summer had with them in a wedding dress? That was something. If you saw any episodes of RPM, you could tell right from the get-go that the people behind that show, along with the actors, they went above and beyond to make sure every episode was good. But you get what I mean. The RPM Rangers didn't always need weapons to take down the Grinders. But when it comes to this movie, it's like all that never happened. So the Grinders are defeated, Scott tells them who he is, he talks about the robots from his dimension, and we see some Japanese writing in the background, as well as major changes in the background with each scene. Talk about being lazy, Saban. So the Rangers head to the Shiba house, and they let Scott have a look around. And as much as I wanted to get into this scene, I couldn't. Being that he isn't unmorphed, and that we can't see his facial expressions, that kind of ruins the scene for me. He then explains why he can't demorph in their old school dimension. And get this, Scott told the Samurai Rangers that he can't demorph because he doesn't know if he can breathe the air there, and tells them about the Dome City he's staying in to avoid the toxic atmosphere from the outside, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Allow me to explain. Remember the episode of RPM called In or Out? I reviewed it some time ago, and at one point, Scott left the Dome City to find his friends Gim and Gemma, and might I add, he was unmorphed. And from what we saw, he had absolutely no problem breathing that air in the wasteland whatsoever. In fact, in another past RPM episode called Ranger Red, he looked as if he was immune to the atmosphere there. So how is the Samurai Ranger's world any different? Let alone, he wasn't even in a wasteland. He was inside the Shiba house and even by the water. Why was he so confident during the time period where he left the Dome City to find his friends, yet here he was so skeptical about just demorphing? It's as if he was nervous or something, and that's not his character. I mean, did the people who worked on this movie even watch any of the RPM episodes? I don't think so, but if they did, I could bet this scene itself would have been a lot better. Either that, or the producers just wanted to save money and not have the actual RPM actor in the movie, and would rather just have that car falling on the Rangers just to kill time. Cheapskates. Anyway, in the Netherworld, we see Xandrid talking with a different Nihilok by the name of Sergeant Tread, and wants him to help Professor Cog. What happened to that other Nihilok called Sharkjaw? I don't remember seeing him taken out, because the Rangers don't destroy main Nihiloks off screen. There is always a battle we see between them. Unless... this is so dumb. So the Grinders ambush the Gold Ranger, Scott takes Mentor's bike, helps him out, and then the Gold Ranger makes one of the dumbest comments you'll ever hear in any Power Ranger movie. Jaden, is that a new helmet? That wasn't Jaden, was it? No joke, that's exactly how he said it. Antonio and Jaden are supposed to be best friends, yet he can't recognize the sound of his own voice? Are you kidding me? Yeah, I know it's not the actor's fault, it's the writing that kills the movie as a whole, basically. So Ranger Red gets rid of all the Grinders, has a fight against Professor Cog, and the Samurai Rangers show up to help him out. And as a result, both of the Red Rangers get hit by Hypnobolts. And just when Professor Cog was going to send the two of them to Scott's dimension, the remaining Samurai Rangers get drawn into the vortex. And the shockwave sends the two Red Rangers into the water. And here is where I'm hoping that we'll be able to see the rest of Scott's team. Since the narrator himself teased it in the opening, thinking logically says we should see something. Anyway, Professor Cog takes his leave to claim more of the Sanzu water. Scott has a brief talk with Jaden, which doesn't really go anywhere. Then they start arguing when they reach the Shiba house, which is of course due to the Hypnobolts they were hit with. They tried to make this scene dramatic, but once again, it did not work. So a day goes by, Mentor lets Jaden know what to do, and Scott thinks it'll be a piece of cake. He then takes Mentor's bike again, and we see a race between both Red Rangers. Now, this race started off pretty darn good, and I was expecting it to end good as well. And what happened? Jaden won the race, of course, but when Scott got there, he was nowhere to be seen. What do I mean? Well, just look at this. All we see in two different shots is Jaden's horse standing in a deserted area. Then magically from out of nowhere, we see Jaden fighting off the Moogers and Grinders, all by himself. And I like how the background changes with each scene. First they're here, now they're here. Tree, no tree. White rocks, gray rocks. Like seriously, has Saban gone senile, or do the writers just don't care? So the two Red Rangers have an epic fight, and what do you know? After a few minutes, right after the fight ends, the background changes again. Why couldn't Saban be more creative with this fight, instead of using so much footage from Super Sentai? If you don't at least have matching backgrounds for the fight, it's not going to make sense, and it sure as hell isn't going to be believable. Also, why is this movie even called Clash of the Red Rangers, when the two Rangers themselves only fight for 2 minutes in the entire movie? When I saw the trailer, they made it seem like it was going to be a long, dragged-out fight to the death between these two Rangers. So technically, this movie shouldn't even be called Clash of the Red Rangers. It should be called Ranger Red Returns, or how about The War Against the Nihilok and the Machines, because that's what the Rangers do throughout the movie, taking down the Grinders, Professor Cog, and the rest of those guys. But at least we get to see Scott's team, right? Hell no. The only chance this movie had of redeeming itself was pissed away yet again by yet another movie-killing one-liner. Yeah, it was that bad. Scott, your team says hi. Yeah, that's all we get. We never even get to see Scott's team, despite the fact that it was teased in the beginning. So what? Are you just supposed to believe that Scott's team said hi? What would Flynn say? Scott, hello, man. What would Dylan say? Hi. What would Dr. K say? Hi there, Ranger Operator Series Red. What a shameless, piss-poor, sad, pathetic, sorry excuse for a movie. I've heard of being cheap before, but this piece of crap takes the word cheap to a whole new level. No doubt about it. And you know what? I'm just about done, so I'm just going to cut to the chase and finish up right here now. The ending by now should be as obvious as ever. The Nylok and the giant toolbox monster gets killed, 2,000 Moogers get taken down with a single shark sword strike, and General Gut is taken down with ease by the shark sword on foot and in the Zord. And after that, Master Xandred complains some more with his headache, and the Samurai Rangers part ways with the Red RPM Ranger, and the movie ends. Thank God. You know, the last two Power Ranger movies weren't exactly that great, but a movie like this is actually worse because this is something that could have been good. I mean, normally you would think that with all the years gone by, a Power Rangers episode that would call itself a movie in this day and age would actually turn out to be amazing. But instead, what we get is a total disappointment of a film that, quite frankly, in my opinion, was released way too soon. If they would have ironed out all the flaws, did a few more rewrites on the script, and had the whole RPM cast, or at least Scott demorphed several times, this might have been better. But the errors and the mistakes that were made in this movie are just so obvious, it makes me wonder why they even made this a movie to begin with. I mean, if you saw RPM like I did, and you heard one of the Samurai Rangers tell Scott that his team said hi, that's almost like a slap in the face to all of us who were expecting something decent from this movie. Why couldn't they have her say, Scott, your team was busy, or Scott, your team wasn't there, but we found our way? That would have made more sense. Or maybe, just maybe, the Rangers were helped by the Eagle Squad or something? I don't know, and at this point, I don't care. But it's like you have the 5 Samurai Rangers meet the RPM Rangers in the other dimension, but we never see them. Did the actors from the RPM season just not want to sign on for this? Because of how terrible the writing was? Needless to say, if that was the case, I don't blame them one bit. So if I had to rate this movie, it would be, without a doubt, 1 out of 10. I would not recommend this movie to any Power Ranger fan. This was, without a doubt, a total letdown. Like, seriously, Saban, you could do better than that. I'm just hoping that he doesn't ruin the Legend War movie next. And in closing, I just want to say, Clash of the Red Rangers sucks. End of discussion.